Look, we're about to dive into some uncomfortable territory here. These are the stereotypes that get thrown at Asian people every single day. The boxes the world tries to shove billions of diverse humans into. We're gonna laugh at the absurdity, acknowledge the harm, and maybe understand each other a little better by the end of this. The math genius slash STEM nerd. When you think of Asian students, you probably picture someone with glasses doing calculus for fun at lunch, while everyone else is talking about normal things like sports or dating. They're always top of the class in math and science. They carry a calculator like it's an emotional support device. They dramatically close their eyes to do mental math like they're channeling ancient mathematical spirits. They get genuinely offended when a non-Asian kid beats them on a test. Their parents force them into a STEM major even though they secretly wanted to study art or music. They're terrible at sports except maybe badminton or table tennis. They have no social life outside study groups. Their idea of relaxing is doing practice problems on a Saturday night. But here's the thing. A lot of them are genuinely passionate about learning, and they tutor struggling students for free, and they're breaking boundaries in tech innovation that'll change all our lives. The tiger parent. You know this person. They've got a wooden spoon or a slipper and they're not afraid to use it. Your grades equal your worth as a human being in their eyes. They ask why you became a doctor and not a lawyer, or why you became a lawyer and not a doctor. They forced you to play piano or violin until your fingers bled and you hated every second of those recitals. They compare you to your cousin Jimmy, who got into Harvard at age 16. They somehow know your report card before you do. They can sense a B+ from 50 miles away like they have a sixth sense for academic disappointment. Their love language is criticism and material provision, but never the words I love you. They show up to every game or recital, but never say they're proud. But the truth is, they worked 3 jobs in a country where nobody respected them, so you could have opportunities they never dreamed of. They're terrified. You'll struggle like they did. They show love through sacrifice and action, not words, because that's how their parents did it. The model minority overachiever. This is the kid who makes everyone else look bad without even trying. Or maybe they're trying so hard nobody sees the effort. Perfect GPA, perfect SAT score, perfect resume with 5 leadership positions and 3 varsity sports, and somehow still volunteers at the hospital on weekends. They're emotionally repressed because showing feelings is weakness. They never complain even when they're drowning. They're the teacher's pet in every single class. They have an existential crisis over an A-, like it's a death sentence. They color code their study schedule by subject and priority level and have backup schedules for their schedules. Their idea of relaxing is doing practice problems or getting ahead on next semester's coursework. They're 4.0 or die trying. But here's what people don't see. They're carrying the crushing weight of family expectations. They're often the first-generation college student breaking barriers their parents couldn't. Their success lifts their entire family out of poverty. That pressure would break most people, but they're out here doing it anyway. The what are you moment, so you're just existing. Maybe you're at a coffee shop or waiting for the bus or literally anywhere in public. And some random stranger walks up and asks, "What are you like? You're a science experiment that needs classification." You say American and they say, "No, but where are you really from?" You say Ohio and they look confused and slightly annoyed that you're not playing along. Then they start guessing. Chinese, Japanese, Korean, Thai. And they say close enough when they're wrong, like all Asian countries are basically the same place. Then comes the ni hao or konnichiwa or annyeonghaseyo. And it's always the wrong language for your actual ethnicity. Then they hit you with, "I have an Asian friend." Like that's some kind of credential that makes this okay. Sometimes they just start speaking random Asian-sounding gibberish at you. The worst part is when it's followed by fetishizing comments about how exotic you are. But you know what? This moment is actually useful. It's an opportunity to educate people who are willing to learn versus filter out the fetishizers and creeps. It builds incredible patience and thick skin. And honestly, it becomes a funny story later when you're with friends who get it. Tell me in the comments, what's the weirdest guess someone's made about your ethnicity? The submissive Asian woman. The stereotype is that she's quiet and obedient and hyper-feminine and exists solely to serve men and be their exotic fantasy. She's supposed to be the traditional housewife material who never challenges anyone, especially not men. She speaks softly and giggles at everything even when nothing's funny. She's the lotus flower and the geisha and the oriental doll all rolled into one dehumanizing package. She's expected to be exotic and traditional simultaneously, which is impossible because those are contradictory demands. Western media taught people she's submissive, but also a dragon lady, but also a ninja assassin, but also needs saving. She's supposed to know martial arts, but also need a big strong man to protect her. The fetishization is constant and exhausting. Dating apps are a nightmare of guys with Asian fever who treat her like a Pokemon to collect. But in reality, she's often multilingual and financially independent. She runs the household budget like a Fortune 500 CFO. The gap between the submissive facade and the reality is the size of the Grand Canyon. She's tired of being seen as a fantasy instead of a human being with her own dreams and agency. Asian family dinner table. Picture this. There's food everywhere, covering every inch of the table, and probably some chairs too. Everyone's talking loud, and it's definitely not arguing, even though the neighbors think World War III is happening. There are 3 generations present, and at least 4 languages being spoken simultaneously. Your aunt is interrogating you about your grades. Your uncle wants to know about your job and why you're not making more money. Your grandma's asking when you're getting married and why you're still single at the ancient age of 23. The force feeding begins immediately. You say you're full, and that's when things get serious. Just one more bite, your mom says, but one more bite means 47 more bites. You're being psychologically manipulated through guilt and love into eating until you physically cannot move. When you finally try to leave the Tupperware, war begins. Your mom and aunts are packing enough food for a week. You came with 1 bag, you're leaving with 17 containers. But here's the beautiful part. This is where intergenerational bonding happens. Food is connection and heritage. Stories and recipes get passed down. Nobody leaves hungry or unloved, even if the love comes with criticism and unsolicited life advice. The emasculated Asian man. So apparently Asian men aren't masculine enough by Western standards, whatever that means. The stereotype is they're short and nerdy and asexual or completely desexualized. They're undateable according to dating app statistics, which is just depressing data about racism. They're the nerdy sidekick forever in Hollywood, never the romantic lead. They're the tech support guy, or the math tutor, or the computer genius, but never the guy who gets the girl. For decades, Hollywood decided that Asian men couldn't be masculine or sexy or desirable. Martial arts was the only acceptable way for them to be physical or powerful, and even then they were often depicted as mystical or foreign, never just normal guys. The bamboo ceiling in dating is real and brutal. They're told they're not man enough, but also too foreign, but also too American, but also need to be more like K-pop stars, but also that's too feminine. It's a no-win situation designed to make them feel inadequate. But things are finally changing. Asian men are redefining masculinity on their own terms. Asian male actors are finally getting leading romantic roles. Simu Liu and Henry Golding and Steven Yeun are proving that different doesn't mean lesser. The next generation won't grow up thinking they're unlovable just because of their face. School lunch, scandal. You're in elementary school. Your mom packed you lunch with love. Rice and Tupperware, some kind of delicious stir-fry or curry or kimchi, foods that represent your heritage and your family's recipes passed down through generations. You open that Tupperware in the cafeteria, and suddenly you're the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. White kids lean over and say, "You, what's that?" They hold their noses. They ask why your food smells so weird. You try to explain it's normal food from your culture, but they're already making faces and moving away. So, you start begging your parents for Lunchables and plain sandwiches and anything that won't make you stand out. You're ashamed of your cultural foods. You reject the very things that connect you to your heritage because you just want to fit in and not be the weird kid. The smell lingers in the lunchroom and you wish you could disappear. But fast forward 20 years, and now everyone's paying $15 for poke bowls and Korean barbecue and pad thai. That weird food is now trendy. This whole experience teaches resilience and eventually pride in your heritage. Food gentrification comes full circle, and you learn to appreciate what your parents were trying to give you all along. The fresh off the boat, relative, your aunt or uncle or grandparent just arrived from the home country. They've got a thick accent that makes white people uncomfortable. They don't understand Western customs, and they're embarrassingly loud in public by American standards, but normal volume by theirs. They wear socks with sandals unironically and think it's the height of comfort and fashion. They brought 47 boxes of snacks from back home in their luggage, random dried squid, strange candies, instant noodles you can't get here. They criticize everything about America while simultaneously being impressed by the weirdest things, like free water at restaurants. They somehow know all the community gossip despite just arriving. They don't get why everyone's so obsessed with personal space. They ask really personal questions about your income and relationship status within 5 minutes of meeting you. They give unsolicited advice about everything from your career to your posture. But here's what people don't see. They're incredibly resourceful survivors. They navigated an immigration system designed to break people. They left everything familiar to give family better opportunities. They're teaching you the language and heritage and stories you're losing growing up American. They're a bridge to your ancestral culture and identity. The Asian grocery store. You walk in and immediately the smell hits you. It's durian and dried fish and incense and things you can't identify. Half the products have no English labels whatsoever. There are entire aisles of sauces where every bottle looks identical, but they're apparently completely different. And if you get the wrong one, your dish is ruined. The produce section has vegetables that look like they're from another planet. There are live fish and crabs in tanks, judging your life choices as you walk by. The frozen section is a mystery wrapped in an enigma wrapped in plastic with Chinese characters. White people nervously wander around asking, "What is this and how do you cook that?" The aunties are blocking entire aisles, having full conversations, catching up on gossip. Nobody's in a hurry. Meanwhile, the produce is 99 cents and fresher than anything at Whole Foods. The seafood is so fresh, it's still moving. But this place is so much more than a store. It's a cultural lifeline for immigrants who are homesick. It's where you find the exact brand of soy sauce your grandma used. It's where the prices are actually affordable. It's family-owned and has been serving the community for generations. It's where heritage is preserved one grocery trip at a time. The whitewashed Asian. So there's this thing where other Asians call you whitewashed, or a banana, or a Twinkie, which means yellow on the outside, white on the inside. The stereotype is you don't act Asian enough, whatever that means. You only have white friends. You can't speak your parents' language, or you pretend you can't. You use a fork for rice instead of chopsticks. You don't listen to Asian music or watch Asian movies. You anglicize your name or go by an English name exclusively. You date white people exclusively. You make fun of FOBs to distance yourself from them. You reject your heritage and culture like it's something embarrassing. Your parents are disappointed because you can't communicate with your grandparents. Other Asians exclude you from Asian friend groups because you're not Asian enough for them. White people don't see you as white, so you're stuck in this weird limbo. You feel like you don't belong anywhere. But here's the reality that people miss. Code switching is a survival strategy, especially if you grew up in predominantly white spaces. Assimilation pressure is real trauma, not a choice. Many people reconcile with their identity later in life when it's safe to explore heritage. The journey back to culture happens on your own timeline, and that's valid too. The perpetual foreigner. You were born in America. You grew up in Iowa or Ohio or wherever. English is your first and sometimes only language. You've never even visited Asia. But random people still ask where you're really from because apparently Iowa isn't a real answer. You say you're American and they look confused or annoyed. They want you to say China or Japan or Korea so they can put you in a box. Your perfect unaccented English surprises people who expect broken grammar. Strangers ask you to translate Asian languages you don't speak. Someone always wants to practice their broken Japanese on you even though you're not Japanese. People assume you're good at math before you even open your mouth. You're treated like an exchange student in your own country. You're seen as a tourist in your hometown. People compliment your English like it's impressive that you speak your native language. The model minority myth makes people assume you're naturally smart and hardworking and good with technology. You're othered constantly in a million small ways every single day. But being a perpetual foreigner also means you have a multicultural perspective others lack. You're a natural bridge between cultures. Your patience levels should genuinely be studied by science, because dealing with this without snapping takes superhuman restraint. The SAT Prep Center. Picture a suburban office park on a Saturday morning. There's a nondescript building with fluorescent lights that make everyone look slightly dead inside. This is the SAT Prep Center, and it's packed. Weekends mean full capacity with kids as young as 12 solving calculus problems while crying. The anxiety is so thick you could cut it with a knife. Parents compare practice test scores in the parking lot like they're comparing stock portfolios. A perfect SAT score is the expectation, not an achievement. Getting 1,400 is a failure in some families. The place is always conveniently located next to an Asian bakery and a karaoke place. Kids spend 4 to 6 hours here every weekend for years. They're memorizing vocabulary words that nobody uses in real conversation. They're learning test-taking strategies instead of actual critical thinking. The pressure is immense and relentless. But strip away the stereotype and you'll see this. It's a genuine community support system. It levels the playing field for immigrant kids whose parents don't speak English well enough to help with homework. It's collective investment in the next generation's success. It's parents who never went to college, making sure their kids have every possible advantage in a system that wasn't designed for them. The nail salon worker. Walk into any nail salon, and the stereotype says you'll find Asian women in pink polo uniforms speaking what sounds like broken English. They're gossiping about clients in Vietnamese or Korean, right in front of customers who have no idea they're being discussed. They know your entire life story based on how you treat them during your appointment. They're breathing in toxic fumes for hours every day, giving themselves chronic health issues. Their backs are permanently damaged from hunching over hands and feet. They work 10 to 12-hour days 6 days a week. People assume this job requires no skill when actually it's a skilled profession requiring training and certification. Customers treat them like servants instead of service providers. They're expected to smile through rude comments and bad tips. The stereotype is they overcharge or do sloppy work, but actually they're running legitimate businesses. These are entrepreneurs who own their own salons. They support entire extended families back home with their income. They work their way up from employee to owner through incredible work ethic. They're providing employment for their community. They're living the actual American dream through hard work and sacrifice. The next time you get your nails done, remember you're being served by someone's mom who's probably working harder than you'll ever have to. Family gathering. Season. It's Lunar New Year or Thanksgiving or some holiday that requires extended family to gather. You walk in and immediately the interrogation begins. If you're single, the aunties ask when you're getting married, and why are you still alone at 25? If you're dating, they ask when's the wedding, and why are you wasting time? If you're married, they ask when are you having a baby, and what's taking so long? If you have one kid, they ask when's the second one coming? Your career gets scrutinized. Why aren't you making more money? Your cousin works at Google, you know. Why didn't you become a doctor? Did you gain weight? You look tired. Are you sleeping enough? The aunties publicly rank all the grandchildren based on achievement. Red envelopes come with strings attached and judgment about your life choices. After dinner, the gambling starts. Mahjong or poker gets intense. Money changes hands. People get genuinely competitive. Passive-aggressive comments are disguised as concern for your well-being. But strip away the discomfort, and here's what's really happening. This is the only time extended family connects across continents and generations. Intergenerational stories get shared. Your grandparents talk about their village or their immigration journey. The roasts are actually hilarious in retrospect. Love is being shown through criticism because that's the cultural love language. Nobody actually means harm, they're just deeply invested in your success and happiness, even if the delivery is rough. The convenience store owner. There's a convenience store in every neighborhood, and the stereotype is it's owned by an Asian family working around the clock. The parents are there from opening to closing every single day. They're suspicious of teenagers because they've been robbed before. They supposedly overcharge for items, but actually their prices are competitive. There's bulletproof glass separating them from customers for a reason, and that reason is they've been threatened or assaulted. They somehow know when you're thinking about shoplifting. Like they have a sixth sense. They can't pronounce certain brand names, but they know the exact inventory and where everything is. The whole family works there. Kids do homework behind the counter. They live above or behind the store, so they're never really off duty. They're open on holidays when every other business is closed. But here's what makes this the Jersey of small businesses. They're actually a community hub. They extend credit to struggling neighbors despite barely making ends meet themselves. They work 80 to 100-hour weeks with no vacation. They're sacrificing their health and time and relationship with their kids so those kids can go to college. They know their regular customers by name. They've watched neighborhood kids grow up. They're investing everything into the next generation. The American dream is supposed to be dead, but these families are still chasing it through sheer determination. Chinatown, or Koreatown, or Little Tokyo. Every major city has one of these ethnic enclaves. Walk down the street and you'll see neon signs in multiple languages. There are restaurants everywhere ranging from tourist traps to authentic spots that locals gatekeep aggressively. There are fake designer bags being sold on folding tables. Street vendors selling food that looks suspicious to outsiders but is absolutely delicious. Everything is cash only, supposedly for tax reasons, but really because immigrant businesses learned not to trust banks. The architecture is chaotic. A massage parlor next to a church, next to a bubble tea shop, next to a pharmacy. The smells change every 10 feet. Roast duck, then incense, then garbage, then fresh bread. White tourists wander around taking photos like it's a theme park. They go to the Americanized restaurants and think they're experiencing authentic culture. Meanwhile, locals know which basement restaurant has the real food. This is the Chinatown, or Koreatown, of cultural preservation, not Disney version of Asia. These neighborhoods were created because Asians weren't allowed to live elsewhere due to racist housing policies. But what started as segregation became a source of strength. It's an immigrant hub and support network. Culture is preserved and passed down. The best food at 2 in the morning when you're drunk. It's cultural education free for anyone willing to actually listen and learn instead of just gawking. The fob fresh off the boat. They just arrived from Asia. Their accent is thick. Their clothes are what's trendy in Seoul or Tokyo, but red is uncool or weird by American standards. They don't get pop culture references. Someone makes a joke about a TV show, and they smile and nod, having no idea what anyone's talking about. They eat lunch that smells strong and looks foreign to American kids. They get made fun of for their pronunciation. They're excluded from social groups because communication is hard. Other Asian Americans sometimes distance themselves to avoid being associated with FOBs. They're carrying designer bags and wearing brands Americans have never heard of. They have the latest phone or technology from Asia that won't be released in the US for another year. Their fashion is actually cooler and more advanced than American trends, but nobody realizes it yet. They study constantly because academics are their ticket to belonging. Their English is better than people assume. They just need time to build confidence. But here's the truth. They have a bilingual advantage that'll pay off huge in the global economy. They're cultural bridges for their community. The resilience it takes to navigate a new country and a new language is extraordinary. And eventually their fashion becomes trendy. Those weird clothes become streetwear everyone wants. That food becomes fusion restaurants charging $30 a plate. They were just ahead of the curve. The karate master / martial arts expert. So apparently, every Asian person knows Kung Fu automatically from birth. The stereotype is they're all secret martial arts masters who can kill you with one perfectly placed touch. They speak in fortune cookie wisdom. They have mystical powers gained through meditation on mountaintops. They can sense danger before it happens. Strangers walk up and ask, "Do you know karate?" then immediately assume you can fight, like you've been training since you could walk. People expect you to fix their posture with one touch, like you're a chiropractor and a sensei combined. You're supposed to bow to everyone, apparently. You can catch flies with chopsticks. You have perfect balance and flexibility. You're either a wise master or a young student. There's no in between. Western movies taught people that all Asians are either ninja assassins or kung fu monks. People think martial arts is your whole personality and culture. They don't understand there are dozens of different martial arts from different countries, with different philosophies. But let's be real. Actual martial artists are preserving ancient traditions and philosophies that go back centuries. They teach discipline and respect and focus to kids who need structure. It's cultural heritage being passed down through generations. It's a legitimate athletic skill that requires years of dedication. The stereotypes are annoying, but the actual practice is beautiful and meaningful and worth protecting. The K-pop/anime obsessed. Picture someone who dyes their hair crazy colors like bright blue or pink or purple. They only listen to K-pop or J-pop. They throw random Japanese or Korean words into English sentences. Kawaii this, appa that. They're obsessed with anime and Korean dramas. Their room is covered in posters. They own body pillows with anime characters on them, which is taking it too far. They learned chopstick skills from watching anime. They want to move to Japan or Korea despite never visiting. White people with Asian fetishes flock to them thinking they're a gateway to Asian culture. Other people ask them, what are you then immediately follow up with? Do you watch anime? Like those two things are connected. They get fetishized by people who confuse them with fictional characters. Creepy strangers treat them like they're supposed to act like their favorite anime girl. People assume they're experts on all Asian culture because they watched Naruto. Their identity gets reduced to consumer products and entertainment. These are just stereotypes, by the way, and we're acknowledging how limiting and sometimes harmful these boxes are. But here's what's actually happening. They're proud of cultural exports going mainstream after decades of Asian culture being mocked. They're connecting with heritage through modern media when traditional paths weren't available. They built online communities when they felt isolated. Representation in media matters enormously. Seeing people who look like you being cool and desirable and powerful on screen is healing after years of being invisible or mocked. The bubble tea shop. Every suburban strip mall has one now. Walk in and the aesthetic is absolutely Instagram worthy. Pastel colors everywhere. Neon signs, plants hanging from the ceiling. The menu is in 3 languages and has approximately 700 customization options. Asian teenagers are dominating every table typing on laptops, supposedly doing homework but actually on social media. The line is 20 people deep on a Tuesday afternoon. Everyone's taking photos of their drinks before the first sip. The employees are exhausted from explaining what boba is for the 1000th time. Customers debate sugar percentage levels like it's a philosophical question. 50% versus 70% creates genuine arguments. Do you want regular ice or less ice or no ice? Regular ice apparently has 5 sub-options. Your name gets spelled hilariously wrong on every cup. They call out Jessica and hand it to someone named Yejin. The drinks are overpriced, but nobody cares because it's the place to be. White people mispronounce boba as baba with hard B sounds. But strip away the trend, and here's the real story. These shops are third spaces for Asian youth to form identity. It's where you can speak your language without judgment. It's an entrepreneurial success story. Immigrant families built empires from tea shops. They're employers for the community. They're cultural bridges between generations. And honestly, the drinks are actually innovative and tasty. This is Asian culture going mainstream and being celebrated instead of mocked. The try-hard Asian. You know this person. They're overcompensating, constantly trying to prove they're not like other Asians. They hustle 24/7. They have 5 side hustles and 3 passion projects, and somehow a full-time job. Their LinkedIn is full of humble brags disguised as inspiration. Just closed another deal, #grateful, #blessed, #grind. They're networking at family dinners, handing out business cards to cousins. They optimize everything. Their morning routine takes 2 hours and involves ice baths and meditation and journaling and a perfect breakfast. 4.0 GPA isn't enough. Valedictorian isn't enough. They need to be founder of 3 clubs and captain of 2 teams. They're running on 4 hours of sleep and 17 cups of coffee. They track their productivity in spreadsheets. They read 1 business book per week and post quotes from it. They're trying to be the model minority on steroids. Every achievement needs to be posted and celebrated publicly. They're exhausting to be around because they make everyone else feel lazy. But here's what drives this. They're haunted by immigrant parent sacrifices. They watch their parents work brutal jobs so they could go to good schools. Imposter syndrome from model minority pressure makes them feel like they constantly need to prove they deserve to be here. They actually inspire others, even if it's annoying sometimes. They just want to make their family proud and justify the sacrifices that were made. The hustle culture is unsustainable, but the heart behind it is pure. The academic/career decision time. So you're 17 or 18 and it's time to decide your future. Except you don't actually get to decide. Your parents have known your career path since you were 5. Doctor's option 1, lawyer's option 2, engineer's option 3. Anything else means you've failed the family. Business major is the compromise option for kids who can't handle real science. Arts means you're disowned. Music is a hobby, not a career. Writing is a waste of time. Teaching doesn't pay enough. Nursing is fine, but why not doctor? You're sitting in your room with a secret art portfolio that represents your actual dreams. You've been lying about your major for 2 years. You sent fake acceptance letters to schools your parents approved. You changed your major 3 times without telling anyone. Your friends are studying what they love while you're dying inside learning organic chemistry. Every family dinner becomes an interrogation. How are your pre-med classes? Did you take the MCAT yet? Your younger sibling is watching to see if you break free or conform. The pressure is suffocating. You feel like a disappointment for wanting something different. But eventually, many families soften. Compromise happens when they see you're genuinely talented at your passion. Some Asian kids become trailblazers and pave the way for younger siblings to choose their own paths. High expectations show belief in your capability, even if the execution is flawed. Your parents just want security for you in an uncertain world. The Tiger Mom/Dad Redux. We're back to the final boss. The Tiger Parent evolved form. By now you're an adult and you're supposed to have perspective, but you're still unpacking childhood trauma in therapy. They were hypercritical of everything you did. Emotionally unavailable because feelings are weakness. Love meant material provision only. They never said I love you or I'm proud of you. Those words don't exist in their vocabulary. Comparison was their main motivation tool. Why can't you be more like so-and-so? Disappointment was their nuclear weapon. I'm not mad, just disappointed cuts deeper than any insult. They sacrificed everything but never told you the details, so you grew up thinking they were just mean. They worked manual labor jobs they were overqualified for because their degrees from back home didn't transfer. They dealt with racism at work every single day and came home exhausted, but still made you practice piano. They went without new clothes or entertainment so you could have tutors and opportunities. They showed affection through orange slices at games and picking you up from practice and making sure you ate. Their love language is actions, not words, because that's how they were raised and how their parents were raised. You're 30 years old before you realize every harsh word came from a place of fear. Fear you'd struggle like they did. Fear you wouldn't be taken seriously in a country that didn't respect them. Eventually you understand it was all love, just expressed in a language you didn't speak yet. So yeah, those are all the negative Asian stereotypes that get thrown around. Some of these might feel true from personal experience, and some are definitely exaggerated or completely wrong. Let me know in the comments which stereotype I got right, or which one made you roll your eyes. And if you enjoyed this uncomfortable journey through stereotype land, consider subscribing for more content that makes us all slightly uncomfortable but hopefully more understanding.